Hey guys, it's Roderick and I'm here with another review of The Real Housewives of New Jersey, Season 13, Episode 7, Shots and Shade. So, let's get into it. We have a lot to unpack in this episode, and I have to say, I think I may have spoke too soon about a couple of things, so I'm going to backpedal and pussy pop and make some new assessments, because I am always the first to say if I'm wrong about something, I will say it. So I think I may have been wrong about a couple of things about certain characters and certain arcs or certain projections I thought for this season. So we'll get to that as we get to it. So we start off with Rachel and Danielle going shopping. Now, up until this point, I am really liking Rachel and Danielle. I think they've been great additions. Like Danielle with her Staten Islandness is really coming in, really making a good fit. And so as soon as that thought comes across my face, right, comes across my head, I immediately am like, ooh, girl, I think you made a misstep, right? So Danielle and Joe, so Danielle talks to Rachel about how her and Joe were bonding about this whole sibling rivalry thing. Now, again, at this point, as we get later, this whole thing about Danielle and her brother, this is something that should be show and not tell, right? So again, I'm calling bullshit because I think either the brother does not want to be part of the show, or as Jackie said, there may be something else going on to the story. Because for this to be such a major part of Danielle's story, why are we not seeing this, right? Even if they do a Kenya Moore where Danielle shows up at the brother's house and knocks, the camera's outside, and their brother's like, go away and treat her like a Jehovah's Witness. We should be seeing more about this than necessarily hearing about it. And I think that's where everything's kind of falling flat for everyone, right? And so, then Rachel points out that, so what Rachel points out is a very interesting thing. She's like, if me and my brother fell out, I would call my brother, I would call the wife, I would call the parents. And she's talking about in relationship to the Battle of the Gorgas with Teresa and Joe. The problem is that one, Teresa and Joe don't have anybody else besides their relative spouses or soon-to-be spouses, in Louis' case, to really talk to. And when the parents were alive, it really didn't work, right? Because if you recall the seasons when Teresa's parents were alive, Teresa typically would have the father's ear talking cash money shit about Joe, and then Joe would show up and be like, why weren't you here, right? Whatever. So the Gorga dynamic is a little different, but I understand where Rachel Fuda was coming from, so I'm not going to call foul on that. It's just a little different, right? So again, she's not steeped so much into history, but I understand what she was saying and kind of like where she was going with that, right? So then Danielle as soon as I'm still thinking, I really like Danielle, I really like Rachel Fuda, Danielle comes in and is like, you know what? I think Marge is a little judgy. I think she doesn't really give Jen a chance. And I'm like, ooh, girl. Okay, one, even if you think that's true, you don't need to step inside of this, right? Because as Dolores schools her, don't repeat something you're not willing to fight about with these girls, right? And I think that either Danielle is itching to kind of get involved, and maybe the producer's like, okay, y'all all can't stand on the outside, on the periphery if you want to be here next season, so y'all gonna have to jump into this double dutch at some point, right? Because I don't understand what Danielle's motivation is coming out of really getting involved with this, right? Rachel Fuda gets the A+ gold star because she has pretty much said, I hear what you're saying, right? But I'm going to judge the situation for myself, because different people can have different experiences of the same person, right? She's not saying that Margaret's experience or Teresa's experience with Margaret is incorrect. She's saying, I'm going to take in what you said, right? But I'm going to let this situation play out and let me judge my experience with Margaret, right? Sorry, I have something in my eye. Okay. So Fuda's getting like check plus with me, right? So then we have Teresa at the jewelry store with Jennifer Aiden, right? So teacher and student are out there. We find out that Bill's cousin owns a jewelry store. So we're like, okay, cute discount. Teresa's picking out gifts for the bridesmaids. And Jennifer Aiden is in her element, right? Spending somebody else's money, right? Like literally, like her eyes just totally lit up when she's like, oh, Louis paying for this? Yes, we can pick out this. Oh, yes, we can pick out this. I'm like, girl, like that's just not a good look for you, because it just gives you, I just like to go around and spend other people's, like I like to spend other people's money, right? Not to say that she doesn't spend her own money, but that Jennifer Aiden's just, her cachet, her facade is just She wants to be this rich, taken care of woman, and maybe that culturally is okay with her, is culturally okay with you, but half the reason you get the stink from your husband that you get is because if all he looks is like, if all you do is spend my money and supposed to be take care of these kids and it's not taken care of, then you're going to catch the smoke for him all the time. But we'll get to Jennifer and her husband in a second, right? So then we get to this whole kind of seeding of Teresa wasn't asked to stay at Joe and Melissa's shore house. So I was like, ooh, that's kind of whatever. I'm like, okay. But as we'll get to, there's a reason for this. I'm going to call bullshit on production with this. So, but of course, Jennifer Aiden comes with her spoon all the time, ready to stir the pot. And I'm not saying that Teresa and Jennifer Aiden are incorrect, right? But again, we'll get to this whole Jersey house thing because it's a little bit more nuanced than what it appears to be. But I think Teresa's feelings are valid, right? The question is whether or not Teresa is part of the game that's being played on her at this point, because I think there's some outside forces going on, okay? So we see Dolores is packing to get ready. You know, Paulie's not coming. I am convinced that Paulie does not want to film with Frank. I think Paulie is like, I could do without, like, I have other male friends. I don't need these guys. I don't want to be a part of the little fraternity S clique. I'm good. I got my woman. I don't want to deal with you. Because Dolores is doing that remix she used to do with Dr. Mike. Oh, it used to be, oh, he had surgery. Oh, he had surgery. Oh, he had surgery, right? But Paulie is like, I don't want to, whatever. So it may be also the fact that if Dolores has to break off some of her money for Frank and his girlfriend, she may tell production, look, you get to see me and my boyfriend, you're going to get the scenes, but unless y'all going to pay these motherfuckers, all of this is coming out of my pocket, right? So I can't be breaking off Paulie, Frank's girlfriend, right? And still have my little change to deal with these bitches too, right? So that may be there is some, I sense there's some kind of economic piece to this, right? Because again, you have the castmates, you have the friend of the shows, and then you have the extras, like the husbands or whatever, right? So as I said, the husbands are typically taken care of by their wives or whatever. The problem, as I said last week, who's paying Frank, right? So I think Dolores, and since all these people are attached to Dolores, production may be like, well, they coming out of your pocket. And she's like, the devil is a whole ass lie. I'm not breaking off all my money for all these motherfucking people, right? So that may be like, okay, Frank. And then Paulie may be like, I don't need to show up anyway because I'm good. So but I also think that Paulie just doesn't want to fuck with Frank like that. I don't think he wants to start off their relationship, their friendship being part of Frank's group. Because think about it, if Paulie shows up, all those guys are all Frank's friends, right? So if Paulie missteps, he says something sideways or greasy, it's going to be all those guys against Paulie. And as big and great as Paulie is, he can't get jumped, right? Because those guys do look like they're the jumper motherfucker type, right? Especially with the food is involved and all that kind of stuff. They look like they will whoop a person's ass. So I don't think Paulie wants to get involved in all of that. Now, but I do have to, and I did get Dolores another check plus. She's like, every time we go down to Jersey, we stay at Frank's house. I'm not staying at Frank's house. I'm staying at Rachel Food's house, right? So I was like, okay. Which we'll get to this housing thing in a second because, like, what you get to. So then Jen Aiden is talking to Bill and she's packing or whatever. And what I realized for Jennifer Aiden is that she's making the same mistake that I think a lot of women make with their boyfriends, fiancés, or husbands. She wants a friend out of her husband, right? Because Jennifer Aiden equates not being supportive as asking you to be critical and self-reflective, as she was accused of not being, and she internalizes that as not being supportive, right? She wants a girlfriend who she can talk about all her bullshit problems to and be like, yeah, girl, fuck her, yeah, blah, 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 blah. And Bill is being more cerebral and very much more emotionally intelligent, is always like, well, maybe we could have handled that situation better. How exactly did you think how she was feeling? All these noble type of things, and Jennifer just wants to rah, you so great, yeah, fuck that bitch, bop. And Bill is like, I'm not here to be your cheerleader, I'm here to be your partner. And they're just on different emotional quotients. Their EQs are just so different, which is why Bill stays silent, because he knows he could go in and let have on her, and he doesn't want all that extra bullshit, right? So women, when your man is silent, that means he is emotionally checking out because he does not want to fight with you. And when he does not want to fight with you, that is 2 X's away from him leaving you, right? So Jennifer Aiden can fuck around, and Bill's like, I can just redo this and get me with a younger chick and be okay. So again, not casting a root or aspersions on their marriage, but I was just like, okay, whatever. Now we get to the Jersey Shore. So this is where most of it takes place, their annual Jersey Shore. And I was thinking about this with Jersey. Like, this Jersey Shore trip better not be the only trip they take, right? Like, I kind of low-key feel like Bravo's like, okay, y'all typically go on a trip, but we spending all our money on Teresa's wedding, so the Jersey Shore is going to be y'all little trip or whatever, which I kind of call like poor boots on, right? Like, you telling me Bravo couldn't spring for Teresa for another trip and Teresa's wedding? But I think the problem is Teresa probably would not want to go out of town on a trip for like a day, 4 days or whatever, and the wedding is coming up. Because at this episode, we still have 4 weeks to the wedding. So there just probably was no time to do a trip. So I think this Jersey Shore trip is the perfunctory trip that, Bravo does with all their franchises, okay? Now, let's talk about this staying situation, because this reeks of Bravo bullshit that they do, like, in other Housewives franchises about, like, who the rooms or whatever. So here's the situation. In Rachel Fuda's house, we have Jen Fessler and Dolores. At the Aidens, we have Teresa and Danielle. At Joe and Melissa's, we have Margaret and Jackie, okay? Now, I 100% agree with Teresa, right? That she should theoretically, her and Louis should be at Joe and Melissa's house. They're relatives. They're related, right? The problem is this. The problem is that production needs Jen Fessler and Jackie to be there, right? Now, Margaret can't stay at Jennifer Aiden's because they're not getting along. And Margaret and Jackie can't stay at Fuda's because Fuda and Danielle are friends, right? Now, the natural thing is that Dolores and Teresa should be at Joe and Margaret's, right? And it should be at Joe and Melissa's, and Margaret and Jackie should have to find their own motherfucking place to stay, right? And that would have been more authentic drama, right? Is Joe and Melissa going to Margaret and saying, hey, you know what? I know we've told you can stay here, but we need to start making entrails with Melissa, entreaties with Melissa, and with Teresa, and making this right. So we're going to ask Teresa to stay and Louis to stay with us. We asked Dolores, because we've known Dolores for a gazillion years, right? So you and Jackie going to have to find another place to stay, right? This reeks of production stirring the pot, right? Because there's no reason why Dolores and Teresa wouldn't be at Joe Melissa's house, right? The problem is that Fessler and Jackie are in the mix, and the fact is you have all these extra people who don't want to be there, and either production didn't want to put up for another house for them to stay in, or didn't think that thought that the better drama would be the drama that these women brought, not with them trying to shuffling these houses around. It just reeks of poor boots, right? Because again, they could have sprung for a house and put Jackie and Margaret in the house together. Who cares? We didn't even need to know where Jackie and Margaret were staying, right? So this just really reeks of kind of overproduction, because I don't believe that they did not want Teresa to stay there. I believe production said these are going to be the housing assignments, because that adds another extra level of this superficial drama, right? Whereas I think the better drama would have been Teresa, Joe, Melissa in the same house, because they can kind of work on their shit and spend some more time together. But no, Bravo goes for the low-hanging fruit. So I was like, whatever, right? Now, so we're still there. And then Melissa brings up the fact that Teresa is talking to Marge's mother, Marge Sr., right? And then I call foul on Marge. It's the first of many fouls I'm going to call. Foul number 1 is on Marge. Teresa did not invite Marge Sr. to the wedding. What the flashback or the showed was, she says to her, I told her to bring you. So Marge Sr. is really just a +1. There's no separate invitation that's going out to Marge Sr. So I call foul on Marge for kind of making it look like Teresa invited Marge Sr. when all she did was, Marge Sr. could be your +1. Is it an invitation? Yes. Is it an invitation? It is an invitation, but it's not a separate invitation. It's not like Marge got an invitation, Marge Sr. got an invitation, which is, whatever. It still ends up being 6 or half dozen, but the presentation is totally different. So I kind of call foul on Marge for that, because I was like, no, not so much, okay? So then Teresa's at the other house complaining how she's not staying Melissa and Joe's, and saying how Gia asked to stay at Joe and Melissa's house, and Melissa said no. Call following you, Teresa, too. Here's the thing. Melissa don't want a bunch of 20-year-olds drinking and fucking and doing all types of shit at her fucking Jersey Shore house, right? Should she have let her niece stay there? Absolutely. But we don't know the dynamics. We don't know who was going to be there. So I'm calling foul on Teresa for making it seem like that Melissa just didn't want her niece to stay there or whatever like that. So I was like, okay, whatever. So then we get to Jackie, right? And then Jackie goes in on her favorite target, Danielle. And Jackie just reeks of haterific, right? Jackie is high-key mad that Danielle has come in and taken her spot on the show, right? And I'm not saying her feelings are not valid. I'm just saying it just reeks of haterific because there's no reason for you to have beef with this girl, right? This girl ain't done nothing to you, right? So she just reeks of hater. And I was like, and then we get to this whole with the first iteration of, is there something else to this brother's story? Now, me, you, and Helen Keller both know that there's typically more to a story than what a person says. Do I think there's more to the story? Possibly, but it will come out in the wash, right? If Bravo is worth their weight in NBC Universal Comcast, the story's going to come out what's going on with his brother, even if it comes out on social media or whatever. So why don't you just let it drip? Danielle is just really trying to low-key say that Danielle is not bringing her full truth to the show, and I brought my whole anorexic body dysmorphia story, and I got booted, and this bitch ain't pulling her weight. That's what Jackie is trying to say with this. It's really trying to low-key subliminal say to the producers is, she's not giving you the whole story. I've given you all my story, and I'm not on the show no more. And I'm not saying Jackie shouldn't be mad. Get you your own show, right? You can't be mad about what people do with their shit, right? So that's the whole thing with Teresa and this wedding. And this is where I'm going to pivot, right? Because at first I was like, you know what, Teresa? You should have gone ahead and invited this person and made this person walk. I really was on that. But then I recognized that one of my mantras is, you can't get mad at what somebody does with their own shit. I mean, you can get mad, but your feelings have no validity because it's their own shit. Now, if Joe Gorga was paying for this wedding and this came out like the Gorga Family Trust or whatever like that, then you could feel some sort of way about who she was inviting to her wedding. But the fact is, Louis and Teresa are paying for this wedding. It's their celebration. Yes, you should be invited. Yes, you should be walking your sister down the aisle. Yes, you're all these things that you've agreed. But at some point, it's her wedding and her shit. So it's not really worth the fight because the wedding is not more important than the relationship, right? So the problem again with the Battle of the Gorgas is they don't know how to pick and choose their battles, and every skirmish is something, right? And Teresa says, well, my brother just likes a spectacle. Coming from the P.T. Barnum chick herself, who will give you a spectacle, a table flip, a table throw, girl. The apple tree, apples next to the tree. You and your brother, literally the same thing. Covered this last week. The problem is that you both have super high tempers and could go to unreachable leads to them, and that's why there's no major fight or whatever. So, I don't know. So, anyway, so then we get to Mars. So basically, another thing with New Jersey that kind of irks me, and this is just really minor, is that when they have these parties, especially the Jersey Shore, the coverage, you could tell the party went on for like 17 hours, right? So when we first see it, when we first get to the party, we're looking at 4, 5, maybe 6. By the time we're done with this episode, it is like it's fucking midnight, okay? Now maybe that is something, but I'm sure the party started a lot earlier than 6 o'clock, right? So we're saying maybe 4 o'clock, maybe 3 o'clock. So it's a 6-hour party, but you could tell when the plot points happen when it's daytime and when it's dark, whatever. Maybe that's just the way the story is, or maybe they just didn't want to have all the bullshit when folks got there. I personally would have had all the bullshit at the front end and then let it titter out and fizzle out and then let folks enjoy their drink. But Bravo was like, you bitches gonna work for every fucking second we out here with these lights and we done pay for all this food and all this shit. So they stay on these chicks' necks throughout every party to make sure everybody's working. Like the only person who didn't really pull their weight was Jen Fessler, right? Because quietly, Jen Fessler and Jackie could have stayed out of this and you wouldn't have had a housing dilemma, right? Because if you go back again, and looking at the housing, if Fessler and Jackie had not come, then Margaret could have stayed at Rachel Fuda's, and Teresa and Dolores could have then go to Joe Melissa's, and Danielle could have been at the Aidens. That's just how it is, right? So anyway, we're like, okay, so the Teresa and Louis show up, right? And Louis like, hey, can you get me an espresso? And I really kind of felt like, go back and watch that, because I really felt like he was going to talk. I felt like Louis was going to say, like there was a moment that Louis wanted to have with Joe Gorga. And here comes Frank fucking ruining the moment, talking about where are the shots at? What's going on? And it totally is like the moment totally fizzled, right? So I just feel like there was a moment that Louis was going to say something, do something, and it totally didn't happen like that, right? And I was like, and so Marge starting shit with Danielle, and when I was watching it, I was like, okay, Marge, girl, I was about to throw another foul, but then I was like, Danielle is purposely choosing a side in this whole situation. And so what's happening is again, this is reminiscent of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, the first proxy war, the most historic one between Lisa Vanderpump and Yolanda Foster. So what is actually happening is that there is a proxy war, right? Like not necessarily a direct conflict, but Teresa is lining up her soldiers and Marge has her people, right? So they're not actively fighting each other, because you go back, Lisa Vanderpump and Yolanda never actively went against each other until Lisa Vanderpump sent the death blow in with the man with the Munchausen thing, courtesy of Lisa Rinna, right? So the thing is that they were all cute and fine together, but they were fighting using other people in the cast. And that's what's happening here, right? And the thing is that Teresa and Marge have been very slick and sly on who they're aligning in their proxies, right? Because I literally cackled when Marge confronted Teresa about what's happening, and Teresa had this look like, bitch, right? Like, she totally misjudged Rachel Fuda and Danielle, right? So she was like, fuck. And so she really, literally, she didn't say anything to Danielle. She said something to Rachel Fuda. And Rachel Fuda was right. Don't get mad at me for repeating it. You should be upset for saying it, right? So it kind of blew the water out, kind of blew the whole plan out of the bag that Teresa is lining up these people against them. And Teresa then countered with a very good point. Girl, quit playing in my face. You know how I am. I know how you are. I'm just saying what it is. And Marge almost got another flag with, I think that's maligning my character. Now, I think Teresa's just telling the truth about you, Marge, and you don't want to step into those shoes because then you think that makes you just as bad as Teresa. When the fact is that Marge and Teresa are more similar than they are dissimilar, right? But Teresa was totally annoyed with Rachel Fuda because she was like, bitch, that was the game plan, right? That was not the game plan here. But I'm glad I know where you are because I know whose side are you on. So a lot of this episode we're seeing a lot of people picking sides on like whose side they're really on, right? So I was just like, okay, girl, whatever, right? Bill Aiden still remains a hilarious drunk to me. I love how much he's a hilarious drunk. And again, Dolores, I started this season not wanting to like Dolores, but Dolores is getting A+, because she's not having Frank's bullshit. How is it you're complaining about not hanging out with Frank and Dolores, and you have a whole ass girl there? Like, I don't know. Again, that's why I'm pulling like Fugazi here on this. Like, the production's like, well, Frank, if you want to be here, you need to fucking pull in some work because Dolores has a man, right? But people like the guys and they like Frank being there. So Dolores just is like, you know what? At a point, she's like, you know what? I'm done with this. This is where we're about to get stupid. And I really like the energy Dolores brings and the energy Bill Aiden brings is very similar to mine. Like, I'm not here with the bullshit. If you want some rah-rah, boo-ha-ha, do that shit on your own. Dolores snatched up her Louis Vuitton bag, was like, bye, bitch, I'm not doing this. And I was all the way here for it. Because she's like, you ain't gonna press me about my man, right? Because if it was real true tea, I wouldn't be fucked with you generally at all on camera, right? But I'm helping your ass out. So anyway, so now Bravo, they'll put the stick in Jen Fessler's ass like, okay, bitch, we ain't paying for you. This ain't no regular party. You need to go on. And she opens a can of worms regarding Melissa's mom, right? So now we get some more texture because in her confessional, Teresa goes back to that 2011 scene we saw where we first saw Joe Gorga and the first of many fights between the two Joes was that. And I don't remember if that was originally in the first production or not, or whether that was like a cutout scene or a B-roll. But I guess when the fight happened, Melissa's sister and mother were talking cash money shit to Teresa, and they got on social media, right? So that is why they were not invited. It's not that Teresa is necessarily ignoring the culture. She just don't fuck with them, right? That's why Melissa's not in the wedding. She doesn't fuck with them, right? So the fact is, Teresa does not want to come out and say, I don't fuck with you. I don't fuck with your mama. I don't fuck with your sister. The only reason I even fuck with you is because of my brother, because those words create hardcore battle lines. And I really do think that she does not want to increase the level of acrimony between her and Melissa. So therefore, she ain't come out and say, I just don't fuck with you. But Melissa needs to and Joe should be smart and realize, look, Teresa just ain't fucking with you, right? And I have to kind of go on Dolores' ass, because Dolores could be put to better use by being the person to be like, girl, you know she ain't fucking with you. She ain't fucking with your mama. She ain't fucking with you. Y'all just need to quit harping on this, because she's about to leave y'all on this island by yourselves, right? But I can't foist all of this on Dolores, because Dolores is like, I got my own problems. Why do I want to get involved with this? Because she knows better than anyone not to get involved with the Battle of the Gorgas, right? But it just makes no sense, right? Then, I've been very hesitant on giving Louis his accolades or whatever, because I just want to suss him out. But I have to give credit where credit is due, right? Louis going to Melissa's mother and apologizing, that was some grown man shit, right? Like, I have to give him credit for that. And then saying in front of Teresa, why don't we just go ahead and invite them, right? As much, you know what, I have to say, again, that squashes everything, right? And Teresa felt some sort of way, right? I don't think she cares all that much, but the fact is that Louis is leading by example with Teresa on what it means to be a bigger and better person, right? And the problem is that what stalls this is that she has to make good TV, and, because Louis thinks that we could, like us, we can solve this at big giant steps. And Teresa's like, nah, bitch, we got to milk this. We got 5 more episodes to go, right? So I think that he doesn't recognize that a lot of the milking and the acrimony is for the sake of television, not necessarily because of whatever. But also, I think Teresa still feels what she feels, right? The Waxing John Fuda, he took it like a champ. Again, loving the Fudas. I loving him. Now, Jackie starts to put in work, right? So then we get a little bit more texture to what's going on with Jen Aiden, because she goes to Jen Aiden and apologizes, sees everything's right. Jen Aiden starts boo-hoo-hooing about Margaret. And I have to say, I will recant what I originally said, because Jennifer Aiden putting all of her children's woes on Marge, I felt was unfair. However, it is accurate and true, because if Marge had not outed the affair publicly, her children would not have to deal with it privately. And I do have to say that is on Marge, right? So I will recant that and say that Jennifer Aiden does have a point with that, right? And that the suffering reflects. And Jackie made a good point about when they were, spreading rumors about Evan cheating on her and how that affects her children or whatever. I totally see that now. I was wrong not to really recognize that nuance. But I do now see also why Jennifer Aiden's upset is that Bill, being a physician who has gone to 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, multiple years of residency, wants the best academic performance from his children, because he's like, children who perform academically can get better jobs and add to this family fortune, as opposed to Jennifer Aiden, who's like, well, they'll be okay. It's not that I don't think that Jennifer Aiden wants her children to be average, but the fact is that I don't think she agrees with Bill's methods of pushing the children to be better in school, right? So I think that adds more texture to the schism, is that Bill's like, look, if you want to be in this world, he just does not want his kids to be some spoiled, rich, Turkish kids, right? He wants them to do well in school, to be happy, but he really does feel that they should be investing and serious about their education. And that's that's a problem. Like, you can't have children and not discuss how you want, like, your both views on like scholastics and academics, right? Because I'm not saying that Jennifer doesn't have high value in education, but we don't know did she go to college? What's her degree in, right? Besides spending other people's motherfucking money, right? So anyway, I was like, whatever, they'll be okay. So then Jackie keeps stirring the pot, and Dolores kind of schools her because this is where production steps in. Because I was like, why is Danielle not going over there and having a conversation with these chicks? Why is she just standing, over here? And it's because production has told her not to go over there if you don't know how to handle your temper, right? So again, New Jersey's trying to be classy based and not having chicks getting drowned and like thrown in the pool. And that's why Danielle's over there away from the conversation, because production is keeping her out because Danielle is like, I'll start swinging and whatever. And then they're like, we don't really do that on Jersey. Like this ain't some VH1 show or some shit like that, right? But Dolores schools her and says, look, don't repeat shit you're not willing to fight about, right? And because Dolores and Fuda are still in the middle, right? Even though they have historical ties with, Teresa and Margaret, they're not jumping in actively yet, right? So we have Melissa, you have Jackie over there with Marge, and then with Teresa, you have Jennifer Aiden, and now you have Danielle, right? So Dolores is kind of low-key telling her, you should have kept your mouth shut because now you're going to be on Marge's bad side, right? And Teresa only got a certain number of seats on her lifeboat, and she ain't going to go up for nobody, right, besides herself. So anyway, that's kind of like, whatever. So because Danielle's like, I can't be involved in the conversation, so I'm going to get up and leave. So anyway, so that was the episode. Again, I'm really enjoying this season. It's been great so far. Next episode looks like it's about to be some shit. The Battle of the Gorgas again. And I really want to see some traction, right? I want to see some truth telling. I want to see some people really talk about it. Because, for example, it took us 7 episodes to get out Teresa, or for production to expose, right, that the reason Melissa's parents weren't invited was because of this. So a lot of this Battle of the Gorga is production stepping in and overproducing this and whatever. And I think that's what's preventing a lot of traction or a lot of healing happening in the relationship, is because that production just does not want. If you didn't have a Battle of the Gorgas, you really would have no major conflict, right? But I am saying now, this is the last season that I'm going to be dealing with the Battle of the Gorgas, right? So they better get it all out now. They better have it now, because I'm not coming back talking about Joe, Melissa, Teresa, and Louis fighting anymore, because it's ridiculous, right? It should be a wrap. Anyway, thanks, guys. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.